Welcome back to our channel. I'm Kitty and this is Emma. And today we wanted to dive into protein. And so, if you followed myself and if you followed Emma for a while, you'll know that I typically work with women who are active, who are strength training, who want to change their body composition, who've probably, gained a bit of body fat over the years. And one thing I find when women start tracking their food is they're really under eating protein and they overeat fat. And protein is such an important macronutrient for many reasons. So, in this video, I thought I'd pick Emma's brains about, protein, how much you want to aim for per day, what does it do in the body, why it's important to get your protein from different sources. I want to talk a bit more about gelatin and collagen. So, Emma, what is protein?
Well, yeah, even that question we get a lot, don't we? We need to bring it back to the basics. We can't assume everyone knows on their plate what the protein component is, but generally speaking, it's, you'll see the meat on the plate, the fish, the seafood, the dairy. Don't forget about dairy, the eggs, hearted cheeses. But protein in itself is one of the key macronutrients when you talk about fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. And proteins are required for rebuilding and repairing the structural components of our body. And for people like yourself who lift heavy and want to build the muscle and retain the muscle, it's imperative to get, the minimum, but depending on your output and how much you lift, your requirements will go up with that.
So, Emma, how much protein do people need to eat? Like, how much per day should they be eating?
Well, there's a general rule of thumb that perhaps a gram per kilo of body weight is sort of a safe sort of a base point, I suppose. But it really does depend on your energy expenditure and what you are demanding of your body. So I generally say as a rule to most females that 80, 90 grams should be your absolute bare minimum. And that would probably be for a rather sedentary, smaller framed female. But if you are, lifting weights and doing a lot of exercise, then you're probably going to need a lot more than that. And also depends what stage of life you're at as well. So if you're in more growth years, perhaps you're embarking on pregnancy, perhaps you're postpartum, whether you're a teenager, whether you're an older person, the requirements are slightly different. But generally speaking, I think if you can aim for 90 grams as an absolute minimum, but for someone strength training or doing one of your programs, you'd be wanting to really go beyond 100 plus. And like for yourself, where do you find your sweet spot from your, trial and error of?
Yeah, so I actually quite like eat high. I have quite a high protein need, I think, or like to eat. So probably I'd sit around 160, 170 grams a day, but about 30 grams of that is collagen. So I take the Sachet Premium Collagen and I have the Marine Collagen. So I think as a general rule of thumb for women in our program, we give a range of about 1.6 grams to 2.2 grams per kilo of your goal body weight. So say if you're someone who's, 100 kilos and your goal body weight is 70 kilos, then you take the goal body weight. You probably, I don't think, need to have more than 160, 170. And then you'd want to have some collagen in that amount as well. I mean, I've seen some clients go a little bit higher, but they like quite a lot of collagen. I think too, what I found with women is when they're under eating protein, and they're not balancing their meals, they just get quite hungry. So, when we get them to track their food, they'll have these meals with like heaps of carbohydrates and just not much protein. So they find that they get that spike at quick energy and then it just drops off and they're really hungry again. So I think just ensuring that you're eating adequate protein and balancing it with carbs and fat will just help with keeping you fuller for longer, balancing that blood sugar. Like we've always talked about, eating those regular, well-balanced meals. It's going to keep those stress hormones low. It actually amazes me, Emma, how much of an improvement women get in their energy and their sleep and all these different things that we talk about, these subjective measures of metabolism, by just actually eating adequate protein, eating adequate carbs, enough calories, balancing the meals, eating, I find with most women in our program, 4 to 6 meals per day, depending on their schedule, works best. Just how much of an improvement they get.
Absolutely. And then
Crazy.
to their structural appearance, I mean, your cells will turn over and be healthier for providing more protein.
I think one thing I used to do though, and this was a question or something that we'll talk about, is getting your protein from a wide variety of sources, I think is important for not only the nutrients that they provide, but also the amino acids, which I'll get Emma to talk about. So one thing I used to do was just eat heaps of muscle meat, egg whites, protein powder, whereas now, I'll have some protein powder, I'll have collagen, I'll have gelatin, I eat eggs, I eat milk, I eat red meat, I eat seafood. So I'm really getting that wide variety of nutrients and amino acids. And perhaps, Emma, you could talk a little bit more about, that was one of my questions, is gelatin and how we've sort of moved away from eating gelatin and why it's important.
Absolutely. Well, having that variety of protein, like you said, is not only important for getting that full spectrum of nutrients, because sea creatures are going to provide certain minerals that you don't get from land. Organ meats are going to provide other nutrients that you don't get from the muscle. So making sure that, you get that full spectrum, absolutely. The dairy component being important because you get the calcium that also balances with the other amino acids. So keeping it complex and keeping it, the variety really wide is important. Also, just out of interest and not letting things get boring. But even more importantly, the amino acid spectrum that each of these proteins is comprised of. So the amino acids being the building blocks of proteins, what makes that protein. Generally speaking, you've got your complete proteins, which contain all 9 what we call essential amino acids. So essential being that the body can't make it itself. And then you have other incomplete proteins, which we can talk about as well. If you just concentrate on the muscle meats, which a lot of people do, or they, not to generalize, but some people who just get caught up in the whole fitness industry might just look at protein is protein, they're all the same, as much, the more the better, and they might just get stuck on chicken breasts, like you said, egg whites, tuna, and that's all they provide the body, but they see it as proteins all the same. So just focus on those alone. But when you muscle meats in particular, you're going to get a high sort of percentage of things like methionine, cysteine, histidine, tryptophan, and these particular essential amino acids, they are essential, but beyond the growth years, they can have pro-inflammatory effects. And these are ones that you want to balance with other amino acids, being in particular glycine and proline, which have quite powerful anti-inflammatory effects. So when you have, this full spectrum of proteins that provide all kinds of amino acids, they all sort of, balance each other out really nicely. And this is where the whole gelatin component has been quite forgotten in more recent years. So you might want to look at muscle meat being almost a refined food, basically, because you've just taken that muscle component of the animal and you've focused on that alone, whereas you're missing out on the complex amino acids that you get from the cartilage, the joints, the skin, the collagen, and these are the bits that provide these alternate amino acids that balance the inflammatory effects of the muscle meat amino acids. So, to put it simply, if we were eating a stew of a whole joint like they would have back in the day, or eating the whole animal, you would have had that nice balanced ratio of these amino acids and might not lead to some of the pro-inflammatory effects of just eating muscle meat all the time. An example might be that, making casseroles, making chicken soup with the wings and the necks and the joints and the bones. These bits are going to provide these other amino acids that give you those gelatinous, properties. Anything that once you cook it and then it cools in the fridge, it should almost go jelly-like. Then you've got a high level of glycine. And further to that, making things with old-fashioned gelatin, the jellies and the set panna cottas and things that gel like that can balance the steak meal. So we really encourage people to understand the difference between your gelatinous proteins and the straight muscle meats, which we've gone into detail in our article at the back end of our Saturday website, so you can see more details about that. But once you see it that way, it really, I think it's quite encouraging to make you want to, find ways to get more gelatin in your day. So like I said, you can play with gelatin and make these jelly-like foods, which are all delicious, and gummies and marshmallows. Or you can also just use more our hydrolyzed collagen, which is gelatin slightly further refined. It dissolves more easily in cold liquids. And you can just add collagen to your coffee and your orange juice. And that can be a simple way to round out the effects of muscle meat.
Yeah. And I really like cooking, but sometimes, like we're busy and I don't have time to make these broths or, the soups and things, especially when it's hot as well. I think in
you don't
summer
know,
now, like it's not that appealing.
Yeah.
So what I find really convenient and easy is just using the marine collagen and the premium collagen. So I actually make ice cream at night, put the premium collagen in there. So I'm probably getting about 10, because I have about 150 grams-ish a night. So I'm probably getting 10 to 15 grams of collagen in the morning. I have 15 grams of the marine collagen. Don't put that one in my coffee because Emma's right. It has a slight fishy, it's not really bad, but like you probably just don't want to wreck your coffee. And because initially I was doing, it's like, yeah, Emma's right. And I just put it in a little bit of water. Like I think,
just quick shot.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Ideally you'd want to be eating the muscle meat with the gelatin, like having the collagen on the side. But what I just try and think about is I just want to get some in the day,
Absolutely.
So I just try and aim for like 30 grams a day. That's just me personally, and so don't overthink it too much, I think
it's just, I mean, look, you can go up to maybe a third of your protein requirement being gelatin, and that can still allow for the growth potential of, the other amino acids from the muscle meat. But like I said, if you're not doing a lot of heavy strength training and you are a bit older, it can be, sort of a major protein, and it can be just, you'll find so many more benefits to joint. You won't get the issues that you might have in later years, definitely. But yeah, look, an optimal amount might be a third or more of your protein intake. But if you could only just get some's still going to be better than
2 to 3 tablespoons a day. Hey, I did an interview.
And you don't even have to sort of be too fixated on the measuring side of it. Don't stress about it, but just start enjoying it in your day. Or where can I spike in my coffee? And what recipes could I find that do utilize gelatin more often? And it might just open up just some ideas that bring new exciting flavors and dishes into your daily.
Yeah, I think definitely because there's lots of testimonials on our website, reviews, but I interviewed a lady last week about the premium collagen, and she was just saying how it's just helped so much with her joint pain, her knees. She got her dad onto it. He had like arthritis in his hips, I think, and he couldn't bend over or some issue like that. And now he can bend over. So it does work. Like it's amazing for your skin, your hair, your nails, joint pain, gut health. It's incredible. And we highly recommend everyone gets it into their diet somehow. And I think, you can cook. And then I think the powders I find are just a really easy and convenient way to get enough in. Because when you cook with the Best Bloom gelatin, you're not getting as much. You'd have to eat a fair bit of jelly to get. So it's great. Do the cooking.
It's diluted with the orange juice. The fruit juices or the sugars and the other things like that.
So it is so fun to cook. I love making the marshmallows. Emma makes the best marshmallows. But I think if you're someone who's busy, just having those collagens in your cupboard and you can just have 2 to 3 tablespoons, I don't measure it properly. I just get it like a soup spoon. I just do a heaped one. It's probably about 15 grams-ish, but it's just such an easy way to get it into your diet.
That's right. And you're going to have some weeks where you're a creative genius in the kitchen and you're concocting all these things and you're on a roll, and other weeks everything falls to shit and you just go, whatever, I'll dump it in my coffee. I'm good.
But so many clients of ours have just reported so many improvements in things by having it in their diet. So we highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted you, sorry, did you want to add anything else there?
No, that's good.
No, okay, sorry, I cut you off. But the other thing I want to talk about is plant protein versus bioavailable animal proteins. So I think a lot of women, they think that going plant-based or vegan, is great. But when you actually understand, I think, the body and physiology and the nutrients we need in our digestive system, you realize that plants just don't contain all the nutrients that we need and the protein in this bioavailable form. So can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, none of your proteins, if you want to call them that, from the plant world are complete. So we're talking about the essential amino acids, and none of them contain all of them. So, there is a theory that if you couple certain plant proteins with other plant proteins, you'll create this complete spectrum. But I've never seen conclusive research that it leads to the kinds of benefits you get from complete bioavailable animal proteins.
Mm.
And also on top of that, plants contain naturally occurring plant toxins, which the plant in itself is trying to defend itself from being eaten and attacked in its own way. So there are all sorts of enzyme inhibitors and anti-nutrients that are trying to, I suppose, deter predator from eating it. And in your digestive tract, these anti-nutrients are going to resist the absorption of the minerals that the plant might contain, and deplete your system of minerals too. So not only is it incomplete, these proteins, but the other components, I suppose, in the plant are going to cause other digestive issues, and they're not going to fuel you effectively, and they're not going to nourish you.
And there's so you can't get gelatin from plants. Hey, you can't get gelatin. No. You can't get vitamin A, the usable form of vitamin A, retinol.
Not preformed vitamin A.
No. Zinc is hard to get. Hey, zinc is
zinc. And it's usually in the type of say in a nut or something. There's also going to be, like we said, anti-nutrients that probably resist you absorbing the zinc from that nut. So there's always a bit of a counter. So if you want the type of foods that do not contain any anti-nutrients, no enzyme inhibitors, these are your animal foods, that they will contain the nutrients, and they're not just the the precursor to the nutrient. They're the actual bioavailable, ready to use form of the nutrient, along with no anti-nutrients to resist it being used in your body.
And look, we're not saying that you shouldn't eat plants. But
no, if you enjoy them, sure, but you've got to prepare them accordingly, and don't overdo them, and don't eat them. Sure, enjoy them, but don't eat them under the misconception that, I'm getting everything I need from them, and let's jam them into my green smoothie, and that's enough for breakfast. You've got to consider what our body, its needs, but also the enzymes that we secrete, and how that matches or mismatches the kinds of nutrients coming in.
I think too, when I don't know whether you said this to me in a concert early on, but it's have the salads, but it's a side, the French, how the French do it, it's a side salad.
Yeah.
The main part of the dish is the meats and the dairy and the fruits and stuff. And then you've just got this
the condiment.
Yeah, that's right. It's really
garnish.
Enjoyable because it creates these nice, yummy flavors, but it's not the main part of the meal, the crunch, or gives it, because I love tacos. On the tacos, I have some lettuce. And I have, that gives it this nice crunch, or I'm trying to think. My sister does this.
It's a textural element. Yeah, it's garnish.
Yeah. It's not the main, my sister does this great. She calls it the green salad. And I think it has rocket lettuce maybe, but it's got red onion, feta cheese, capers, and she squeezes lemon juice and olive oil. And it's just so nice with the nice lamb and the potatoes. And it's just this crispy, lemony. But it's not,
and also it can be a vehicle for the vinegar and the salts and the cheeses and the things that might also stimulate your own digestive juices. So there can be a digestive enhancer too.
Yeah. So it's eat the salad and the veggies, but have it as a side. It's a condiment. It's it accompany, it's the right word.
Accompany.
Yeah, to the main meal.
Yeah.
Not the main huge salad I used to eat, these huge green salads with this little bit of bloody chicken on it.
Salad alone, or maybe a bit of chicken on top.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the last thing is the examples of, I think we've sort of touched on it, but the bioavailable animal protein. So we've got red meat, seafood, good quality, dairy.
Well, even when you talk about red meat, sort of breaking it up a bit further, I mean, you can have your fillet steaks and things, but also, the meat on the bone, perhaps there's more nourishment there.
Ox tails and
furthermore, the really tough, the things that require long, slow cooking. So anything that's a bit tougher that you can't do a quick cook of, that requires a long, slow cook, it's usually because it's got more collagen in it, which has made it a bit tougher. So it needs that length of time for that to melt.
The beef cheeks and the ox tails, and what's the other one that you recommended to me that I always forget the name of?
Oyster blade,
which is really good, and it's pretty lean too when you trim it. So the beef cheeks,
and you don't have to pull out bits of bone or anything.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
can, like, I love beef. I have them nearly, like, I've been on a bit of a roll with the beef cheeks and they're so easy. I just throw them in the slow cooker overnight or just in the morning and then just portion them up with some,
Incredible.
yeah, it's so easy and it's so tasty and
And
it's
how does it go
lean.
after it's been in the fridge, after it's cooled down? It's just got this jelliness, doesn't
Jelly.
it? It's just incredible. And
Yeah.
there's your
Yeah.
glycine. Incredible.
Yeah. So there,
So
yeah,
yeah, your red meats.
there are chicken, poultry still, like, I think poultry, pork is fine. You just want to get pasture raised. Hey, like you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
ideally
Yeah.
best source you can, but
Mm.
ultimately chickens and pigs, they're going to eat the kinds of foods that ultimately are going to bring it. There'll be more PUFA in the fat of these animals, definitely. And even though cows might eat, some of the foods that sort of cross over, cows have an ability in their rumen to basically convert the PUFA into saturated fats. So this is why the fats on these ruminant animals are safer to us and they resist oxidation, whereas chickens and pigs don't have that ability. So when people, they're eating predominantly chicken as their protein, they're not restricting PUFAs like they could or should be. Whereas, the lamb and beef, you'll be safer with the kind of fats on them. Yeah.
Yeah, so just don't eat
And
chicken
not
breast
saying not
every
to have
day
it,
for
but
5 meals.
exactly.
Yeah.
You might have roast chicken once a week or once a fortnight. But
Yeah.
again, it depends on your physical state. And if your health is really compromised and there's, clearly PUFA overload in the tissue, you might want to cut those meats out for a while and just focus on, the red meats and maybe some lean seafood.
Yeah, it's interesting, like when you buy the organic pasture-raised chickens, like the difference. They're
Oh,
not as
yeah.
fatty. Like they're
Yeah,
more, yeah. And you know what I actually do quite like sometimes is chicken thigh, and I like marinate them and cook them in the oven, and they're sometimes yummy for lunch. Yeah, so I go in and out with chicken. I'm like, and pork, I eat heaps of pork, but I think it's just because it's so fatty. It's like more of a special sort of thing, like you do in the pork belly. What else? So we
As we
see,
just say, I'm doing pork belly for
yeah,
Christmas.
she's
And
doing pork
it's
belly with Chris. I'm
for
like,
once a year
delicious.
thing, but so damn good when you do
Emma
it.
is the best cook ever. Like,
I am
legit,
not.
she is. I'm gonna make over the holidays. That good lemon thing that you made with the egg. What's that lamb?
Oh, the
Is it-
lamb.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got
I'm
it
gonna
now.
make that for Craig over the Christmas holidays. It is the bomb. Okay, seafood. So fish, like oysters and prawns and all those
Shellfish,
things.
yeah,
Shellfish are really good because they're high in
definitely.
trace minerals.
Oh,
Try
and
and
that's a good
yeah.
point to make. Sorry, I keep cutting you
No,
off.
no, go. Go.
But when you think of just sort of a meaty fish, like fish fillets, that's still muscle meat. So you're going to have similar issues of a not so ideal amino acid spectrum right there. Whereas shellfish, you'll be better off. And also mineral wise, you got a lot more nutrients in oysters and prawns than you do in just a piece of white fish. And on top of that, the heavy metal issue is a concern with seafood, and we can't sort of avoid that in the seas now, which is a shame. So from cleaner waters is better, but ultimately the smaller variety of fish are better than very large ones. So your swordfish and tuna are really pretty concerning. I don't touch them personally anymore, but if you were to have those kinds of fish, you'd have them very infrequently.
We said dairy, eggs. Try and steer away from like farm salmon. Hey, like I used to just smash farm salmon. Like if you want to occasionally have some nice wild caught, like imported salmon, because they put dyes and it's pretty bad. Hey,
It's really bad. I've spoken to the salmon farmers and they've disclosed everything to me, and it's hydrolyzed chicken feathers and antibiotics, and they have to dye the flesh because
crazy.
It's grey otherwise. It's really sad. It's not health food, like it used to be. But unless you can get the wild stuff, even still, it's a cold water fish, so the fats are more unsaturated. But at least there'd be good nutrients and a sustainable source. But I'd not touch it myself.
Yeah, like most of the salmon in Australia, like it's just farmed, isn't it? Or all of it is farmed in Australia.
It is, yeah.
Collagen,
And what you're saying with cheeses too. So even
Mm.
if you're conscious of upping your protein, you probably want to go for the harder, dry cheeses than your nice oozy ones that are pretty much solid fat. But
yeah, they're so fatty.
Parmesans and things like that are fantastic for protein.
Because it's not that fat is bad, it's just that people eat excess fat. It's just excess calories. Yeah, too much calories. And
if you've already got a lot of fat in your diet,
Yeah,
don't need.
and you're hammering the high
lots
fat
of-
dairy. It's just
No.
like this is why people gain so much weight. I think when they move to the pro because they just eat so much fat
Get a
and
bit
ice cream.
excited.
I really love those Jarlsberg light cheeses. I love that. You know
Jarlsberg, yeah.
the sliced light cheese. It's really good as a snack. It's tasty.
That's delicious.
What about then? So then gelatin and collagen, which we've talked about. You can get the hydrolyzed. Oh, and then we've got casein. So we do a clean casein powder, which I think is a really great, like it's handy to have in your cupboard if you struggle to increase your protein, like get enough protein. You can make hot chocolate. Sometimes I make ice cream with it, custards. It's a great way I find with women in our program, if they sort of struggle to reach their protein for a day, they can just add a couple of teaspoons into their, somewhere and then, or just use it. I use it in smoothies. I have like a chocolate, iced chocolate with, bloody rice pudding after training, which is super easy. It's just a handy thing, I think, to have.
It's very
You
handy.
don't have to use protein powder. Like, don't
No.
think you have to use it, but I just find it's handy to have in the cupboard.
And it's important to note, and again, go to the article section of our website for the article on casein to really understand this properly. But just, in a nutshell, you've got your two major proteins that come from milk. You've got whey and you've got casein. And, these are the ones that are split when you make cheese, which makes cheeses naturally high in casein because you've removed the whey component. And whey is something that was ultimately becoming a bit of a waste product, but they found a way to make a lot of money out of it. And you've got all these whey protein powders out there, which when you look at the amino acid sort of composition of these protein elements, the tryptophan is very high in your whey. It can lead to lots of inflammatory issues down the track. So if you're really into your whey protein, you might want to consider swapping to a casein product. It's what we recommend to our clients, definitely, but understand the back end behind it all, and you might see it all differently. But the casein is a more expensive part. The whey is very cheap. So as a manufacturer of protein powders, it's another reason to push that one, not the casein. And to get a pure casein that is, doesn't have any flow agents and flavorings as well. But that's a big topic in itself, but really worth understanding how casein is a, far more preferable protein supplement than whey.
Yeah. I think that's covered all the things I wanted to cover. Is there anything else that you want to add?
In terms of protein, no, I think it's good. Maybe just that you want to kind of maybe eyeball your meals across the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and see that you're getting a bit of protein in all the meals. You're not just going all day mainly on carbs and you're holding out for dinner and then you have a massive steak. And if anything, you might want to have, most of your protein in the earlier part of the day and sort of the carbs later on. But I think with every meal, just making sure there's a
protein,
decent balance of protein, some fats, some carbohydrates.
So much.
Which is easy to do even within your snacks. You might have some fruit and some hard cheese. There's a great snack right there, carbohydrates and minerals and protein right there.
And delicious.
And delicious. But, protein even all by itself can be a bit of an issue, but balancing it with carbohydrates.
Awesome. All right. So make sure you follow us on Instagram. We're @satre_official_. That's where we share lots more educational content. Go to our website and there's a ton of articles that Emma has written on, protein and collagen and skincare and oysters and liver, cascara. So have a read of those. And we'll continue to record more educational videos like this, and we will see you again next time.